If you're thinking about filing a Chapter 7, a question that you have to look at very carefully is which of your debts will be discharged or wiped out. Bankruptcy Code Section 523 sets forth a list of the types of debts which may not be discharged in a Chapter 7. Let's briefly run through the list. First one that's relevant to many people is student loans. Generally, you cannot wipe out student loans in a Chapter 7. There's a hardship exception to this, but it's very hard to meet. So student loans generally not wiped out. Next common type of debt that is not wiped out in a Chapter 7 are domestic support obligations, meaning if you have to pay alimony, if you have to pay child support, you are not going to wipe those out in a Chapter 7. Third type of common debt to not get wiped out in a Chapter 7 is unlisted debts. When you file any kind of bankruptcy, you have to list all of your debts and all of your assets. For many reasons, people sometimes don't list all of their debts. Maybe they forget some, maybe they're playing some kind of game, but not listing a debt is stupid because any debt that isn't listed by definition will not be discharged. So, very foolish not to list your debts. Next big common type of debt which may not be discharged is tax debts. This is a kind of a complicated subject. If you have significant tax debts, you need to look carefully at the statute and analyze, are your tax debts going to get wiped out or not? What it comes down to is recent tax debts are not wiped out. Tax debts need to be pretty old, and some kinds of tax debts can be wiped out, some types cannot. For example, if you have any payroll withholding taxes, if you owned a business and didn't pay the payroll withholding taxes for your employees, that you cannot wipe out. A lot of complicated rules here, but taxes are a situation you'll look at very carefully in considering filing Chapter 7. Another category of debts that doesn't get wiped out is recent credit card debt. The system is very down on people who decide, I'm going to file bankruptcy in 60 days, so let's go on a binge and max out all of my credit cards between now and then. Real bad idea. Don't do that. Those debts will not be wiped out. Now finally, there's kind of an odd collection of debts that are not wiped out that you might just generically call bad behavior debts. I mean, for example, if you injure somebody in a drunk driving accident, and they get a judgment against you, that judgment is not dischargeable. If you embezzle money, if you intentionally damage property, if you get credit by giving false financial information to a bank, all of these things potentially come in the category of non-dischargeable debts. One thing to understand about this is if a particular debt is non-dischargeable, as a rule, the creditor needs to bring a lawsuit within the bankruptcy to prove that this debt is non-dischargeable. The presumption usually is that all debts listed are discharged unless there's an affirmative order to the contrary. Please take a close look at this subject before filing Chapter 7.